Maybe I'll do a US 231 video someday, but not right now.
And so now it's finally time
Yeah!
For US 231. Alright everyone, today we're going to be doing US Highway 231. US 231 is one of 4 children of US Highway 31, and it is the longest of the 4 children as it runs from Panama City all the way up to northern Indiana. And just like US 421, US 231 connects the southeast with Indiana, and it has some awesome signage. So, let us take a look at US 231. But first, you're watching the TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button, and if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with 1 free Azure request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of US 231 as it runs from US 98 Business in Panama City, Florida, all the way up to St. John, Indiana at a junction with US Highway 41. And I've been on bits and spurts of US 231 in the states of Alabama and Tennessee. So with that, we're talking about northbound US 231. So we begin here at the US 98 Business Junction, where to start off we have a comically large US 231 shield with a horrible control city of Youngstown, Florida. I do not like that at all because Youngstown, Florida is an unincorporated community. And here we are meeting with US Highway 98 outside of downtown Panama City. And we get a pull through here with Dothan now as our control city. But we can see that there's a mileage sign right next to it with Carnival on the bottom line from 50 miles away, which is where we meet US 90, but only has a population of 900 people. Why isn't Dothan on that mileage sign, ALDOT? Come on. And here we are meeting with Florida Highway 20 as we're still continuing north towards Dothan. Our next mileage sign, we do get Dothan as our primary from 55 miles away, so that's good. And here we meet Interstate 10, which is inside Pensacola and Tallahassee, which are good choices. I mean, you could do Mobile for 10 westbound, but Pensacola is still a pretty sizable city, and it's a vacation spot too. And here in Carnival, we meet with US Highway 90 as it's being signed for Chipley and Mariana, while on US 90 we get signed for Camp Elton, which I do not like at all because it is the last town in Florida and only has like 120 people. Come on, ALDOT, why aren't you signing Dothan? Luckily, we do get a one-liner with Dothan from 19 miles away. So and here we are entering into the state of Alabama, and it looks like that US 231 actually gets a welcome center. That's pretty cool. And our first mileage sign, we actually get Montgomery from 120 miles away. So ALDOT is shooting for the moon right away as we're entering into the state. And here in Dothan, we meet with the beginning of US Highway 431, one of her siblings. And US 231 is going to be taking a left turn here to head towards Ozark and Enterprise. And while on the Dothan loop, we meet with US Highway 84, which was requested by Ryan Golden, as they were on this road when they were going from the University of Alabama down to the University of Florida State. So thank you for that request. And this is where we split off from US Highway 84, as now we're going to continue north towards Montgomery and other places. Our next mileage sign, we still get Montgomery as our primary, with Ozark now as our secondary from 20 miles away. And after going through Ozark, we get another mileage sign, and we now get Troy as our secondary from 30 miles away. And here in Troy, we meet with US 29 and Alabama Highway 10. That's cool. And our next mileage sign, we now get Montgomery from 40 miles away, so ALDOT is being consistent here, which I do like. Here we meet with US Highway 82 outside of Montgomery, and US 82 and 231 are now going to be concurrent as we head towards the state capital. And now we're meeting with US Highway 80, and we're going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Interstate 85. And if you want to see a series on US Highway 80, be sure to check the description down below as I list all the highways that I've done in the current video. And this is where US 80 splits off from US Highway 231 as it's going to be concurrent with Interstate 85 as they head towards Atlanta. And 85 southbound is being signed for downtown Montgomery, which is a good choice. And this is where we meet Alabama Highway 152. And sadly, it cannot be upgraded to a spur of Interstate 65 because it has a great intersection. But it's basically just like a spur over to Interstate 65, as we're now getting control for Wetumpka. In our next mileage time, we just get a one-liner with Wetumpka from 9 miles away. And here in Wetumpka, we are now being signed for Rockford, Alabama. But our next mileage time, we get Rockford on the top line from 25 miles away, and Sylacauga from 44. That Sylacauga is where we meet US 280, so you could also sign something on US 280 like Birmingham. And skipping ahead to the Sylacauga area, we meet with US Highway 280, and we're now going to be heading northwest up towards Birmingham. In fact, we do get Birmingham on our next mileage time, so that is awesome by ALDOT. And this is one of 2 times that US 231 gets signed for Birmingham. So it's actually very cool that US 231 gets signed for basically every big major Alabama city, so that's awesome. And this is where US 231 splits off from US Highway 280, as 280 is going to continue north towards Birmingham, while we now get Vincent as our next control city. I mean, you could also put on Pell City there too, but Vincent's an alright town. And here in Vincent, we now get Pell City as our control city, which is a good choice. And skipping ahead to the Pell City area, we'll meet with US Highway 78, as it's just being signed for Riverside. And also in Pell City, we meet with Interstate 20 here, as it's being signed for Atlanta and Birmingham respectively. And since I was on Interstate 20 back in October, I managed to get a picture of the exit, as we now get Asheville, Alabama as our next control city. And I also managed to stop at this exit on Interstate 20, and I went to this place called City Market Buffet and Grill, which is a good place for dinner. If you like buffets, I definitely recommend checking this place out. In our next mileage time, we now get Huntsville from 97 miles away. I like what ALDOT does here. Like, they signed for the next biggest city. This is awesome. And here in Asheville, we meet with US Highway 411, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head into downtown. And this is where I split off from US Highway 411, as US 231 is now going to be continuing north towards Huntsville and other places. And outside of Asheville, we meet with Interstate 59 here, as it's being signed for Birmingham southbound, and I do not like that control city for northbound. I should definitely be Chattanooga, ALDOT, not Gatson. And on Interstate 59, our next control city is Winona, which is the next town we're going to be passing through. But first, we meet with US Highway 11 here, and I actually did a series on US Highway 11. You should check that out in the description below. But our next mileage time, we now get Huntsville still as our primary from 76 miles away, which is awesome. Here in Winona, we meet with Alabama Highway 75 here, and it looks like that US 231 has some strange looking arrow. I do not know what to call it. But it looks like that in order to continue here, we need to continue between the 2 and the 3. I don't know. In our next mileage time, we now get Arab as our secondary from 23 miles away, and Huntsville still as our primary. So at least ALDOT is keeping up with that. And here we meet with US Highway 278 in the middle of nowhere, northern Alabama, and we just get the secondary sign as Arab. And here in Arab, we are now getting signed for Huntsville, which is an awesome choice. And in fact, our next mileage, we get Morgan City on the top line from 11 miles away and Huntsville from 27. And here we are crossing over the Tennessee River with an awesome view of the mountains in the background. And here's our first major exit, as we're now going to become a freeway through the city of Huntsville. And then always up the road, we now pick up US Highway 431 once again. And we see that there's some mountains in the background, so that's awesome. And then now we meet with Interstate 565 here, and sadly it does not have any control cities, which I do not like at all. Neither does US 231 and 431. 231 and 431 should be signed for Fayetteville, Tennessee, while 565 eastbound should get Scottsboro/Chattanooga, while 565 westbound should get Decatur. Come on, ALDOT. And we're also meeting US Highway 72 soon, so that's pretty cool. And this is where US 72 splits off from US 231 and 431, as it just gets a couple of Kentucky treatments. And then always up the road, we're now entering into Tennessee, so let's see what Tennessee has to offer on US 231. And here in Fayetteville, Tennessee, we split off from US Highway 431, and we're now going to be joining with US 64 as we head around the city. But if we actually take a look on US 64 westbound, there's an error shield that TDOT accidentally made. So first US 27 and now US 64. And US 70 as well. Come on, TDOT, why are you messing with the two biggest highways here in North Carolina? And we've seen this before. This is the scene where US 231 splits off from US 64, as we're now getting signed for Shelbyville, which is a good choice. And here in Shelbyville, we meet with US 41 alternate, which will take you up to Nashville. And then we can see that we're now getting signed north for Murfreesboro, which is an awesome choice. And we also meet with Tennessee Highway 437 here, so I guess you could say that this is also a quarter mile approved. And here in the Murfreesboro area, we meet with Interstate 24, which I recently just did a video on, which you can check out in the description below. And here we meet with US 41 and US 70S, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through the city of Murfreesboro. And this is where we split off from US Highway 70S and US 41, as we're now going to be joining with Tennessee Highway 96. And outside of Murfreesboro, we are now getting signed north for Lebanon, Tennessee, so that is a good choice. And coincidentally, US 231 was also one of the stops I made on my Springfield trip last summer, and we stopped at this pilot here where I accidentally grabbed the wrong chicken sandwich and got a spicy one instead, so I had to deal with that spiciness from Lebanon basically all the way until like far eastern Tennessee. That was not a pleasant experience. We also meet with Interstate 40 here as the team signed for Nashville and Knoxville respectively, which are, again, awesome choices. And then we also meet with US Highway 70 here in downtown Lebanon. And we can see that north of Lebanon, we are getting signed for Westmoreland as our next control city. And outside of Westmoreland, Tennessee, we're now going to be joining with our parent, or a branch of our parent, US 31E here, as we're going to be heading north into Kentucky. In our next mileage line, we get a one-liner here with Scottsville, Kentucky from 19 miles away. And here we are now entering into the state of Kentucky, so let's see what Kentucky has to offer on US 231. And here in Scottsville, Kentucky, we split off from our parent US 31E, as we're now going to be heading north towards Bowling Green. And here in Bowling Green, we meet the road that'll take you over to Interstate 165, as it's getting the control cities for both 65 and 165. And here we are meeting Interstate 65 ourselves, and from here on out, we're basically going to be paralleling Interstate 65, but from like a very far distance. And here in the heart of Bowling Green, we meet our second branch parent, US 31W here, and it'll take you over to Interstate 165. And we're now meeting with US Highway 68, and we're now going to be concurrent with US 68 as we head around the city of Bowling Green. And this is where we split off from US Highway 68, as we're now going to be continuing north towards Owensboro, and we're going to be paralleling Interstate 165. In fact, here's that said junction with Interstate 165. And then meet it again a little ways up the road. And here's the map of the US 231 and 165 parallel. I'm just going to be skipping this entire area. But we are going to be showing the US 62 junction in Beaver Dam, Kentucky. And this is where US 62 splits off from US Highway 231. That's going to be continuing north of here. And here we get another obtuse looking angle, this time for US Highway 231. So 221 and 231 both get very obtuse angles. Pretty funny. Anyway, skipping ahead to the Owensboro area, we'll meet with US Highway 60, and we're now going to be concurrent with US 60 as we head towards Hawesville. And we also meet the northern terminus of Interstate 165 here, as it's being signed south for Bowling Green. And this is where US 60 splits off from us, as it's being signed for Lewisport and Hawesville. I mean, you could also put Louisville on there too. While we're getting signed north for Rockport, Indiana. And here we are crossing over the Ohio River, and we're now getting a welcome to Indiana sign, and we're going to be meeting Indiana 66 as that'll take you over to Rockport and Evansville. And our first mileage sign here in Indiana, we get Dale as our primary from 18 miles away. And then on our way to Dale and Interstate 64, we meet with Indiana Highway 162, which will take you over to the famous city of Santa Claus, Indiana. And then the next mileage sign here in the Dale area, we now get Jasper as our primary from 14 miles away. And here we meet with Interstate 64, which, like all interstates in Indiana, it gets awesome control cities. And here in the Jasper area, we meet up with Indiana Highway 56, and we're going to be concurrent with it as we head into downtown Jasper. And we also get the control city of French Lick. I don't know how I feel about that. But luckily, once we were in front of the courthouse here, we're now getting signed for Lagouti and Bloomfield as our next control cities. Here in Lagouti, we meet with US 50 and 150 here. And we can see that we're getting signed for downtown for some reason instead of our next control city for either US 50 and 150 and 231. Here, after going through downtown Lagouti, we split off from the two highways as we're now getting signed for Bloomfield, which is a good choice. And on our way to Bloomfield, we meet with Interstate 69 here, as it's being signed for Evansville and Indianapolis, respectively, along with the city of Bloomington, Indiana. But our next mileage time, we just get a one-liner with Bloomfield from 8 miles away, which I do not like at all. I prefer to see another control city here, please, Indiana. You're usually better than this. And here in Bloomfield, we meet with Indiana 54 and 157 as we're now getting signed for Linton. I have never heard of that place before. And our next mileage time, we get Linton as our primary from only 9 miles away. I mean, yes, I get Linton is a big city or sizable city on Indiana 54, but I also want to see something being signed on US 231 as well. I want to see Spencer on here too, Indiana. Like I said, you're usually better than this. Why are you being bad on US 231? Luckily, once we move with Indiana Highway 67, we're getting signed for Indianapolis, which is an awesome choice. Our next mileage time, we do get Indianapolis as our primary from 56 miles away, despite us not going there. And this is where Indiana 67 splits off from us as it heads up towards Indy, while we're getting signed for Greencastle, which is the city where we meet with Interstate 70. Our next mileage time, we do get Greencastle as our primary from 22 miles away. And here we are meeting with Interstate 70 as it's being signed for Indy eastbound and St. Louis westbound. And after passing the Interstate 70 junction, we now get Crawfordsville as our primary from 36 miles away. And when we ever meet Interstate 70, we also meet US Highway 40 as it's not far behind from Interstate 70. And skipping ahead, we meet with US Highway 36 here in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. And our next mileage time, we now get West Lafayette as our primary from 46 miles away. I mean, I prefer to see Lafayette proper, but West Lafayette is where we meet US 52, so I'm fine with that. And this here is in Crawfordsville, where we meet with US Highway 136, and we're going to be meeting Interstate 74 soon. And here we meet with Interstate 74 as it's consigned for Indy and Peoria, which are good choices. And this is also on my Springfield trip. I managed to get a picture of the exit on Interstate 74 here, as we're now getting signed north for Linden. For our next mileage time, we now just get Lafayette proper as our primary from 25 miles away, which is an awesome choice. And here in the Lafayette area, we'll meet with both Indiana 25 and US Highway 52. And we're now going to be concurrent with the highway as we go around the city of Lafayette. And we're going to be meeting the Purdue University, so that is cool. Well, here's the most old way to pronounce that you're at a university. Welcome to Purdue. And after going around Lafayette, we're finally going to be following US Highway 231 or historic US 152. Our next mileage time, we now get Rensselaer as our primary from 38 miles away. That's where we meet US 24. And here we meet with Interstate 65 as we're now closely paralleling the interstate from here to basically its northern terminus. And here we meet with US Highway 24 as we're now going to be heading north towards Rensselaer still, while 24 eastbound is going to be heading towards Monticello. Here's where we split off from US Highway 24 as it's going to be heading towards Kentland, and we're still looking signed north for Rensselaer. But our next mileage time, we actually get DeMott as our primary from 32 miles away. And here is the town of DeMott, Indiana. In our next mileage time, we now get Valparaiso as our primary from 16 miles away now. And this here is in the Hebron area as we're now being signed for Crown Point. And here in the Crown Point area, we'll meet with Interstate 65 for the very last time. The 65 northbound will take you up to Interstates 80, 90, and 94, while southbound is going to be taking you to Indy. And we end here at US Highway 41 in St. John, Indiana. So with that, we're turning around and doing southbound US 231. Here we begin at the US 41 junction once again, and US 231 is going to be taking a left turn here. I'm going to be heading south towards Crown Point and other places here in Indiana. And here we get our first one-liner mileage time with just Crown Point from 5 miles away. And then here we meet with Interstate 65 as it's getting the same control cities that we saw going northbound. And our next mileage time, we get DeMott on the top line from 7 miles away, and Rensselaer is our primary from 27. And after going through DeMott, we now get Remington from 29 miles away, and that is actually the time we meet with US 24, not Rensselaer. And here in Remington, we meet with US 24 as we're now getting signed for Monticello and Lafayette, respectively, which are awesome choices. And then skipping ahead to the Lafayette area, we'll meet with US Highway 52. We're now going to be concurrent with the highway here. And here is where we split off from US Highway 52 in the beginning of the second half of Indiana 25. And on Indiana 25, we're now getting signed for Crawfordsville, which is a good choice. Here in Crawfordsville, we meet with Interstate 74 once again as it's being signed for Indianapolis eastbound and Peoria for westbound. And we also meet with US Highway 136 here as we're now going to be continuing south towards Greencastle. For our next mileage time, we actually get Spencer from 54 miles away, which is an interesting choice. And here we meet with US Highway 36 in the middle of nowhere once again. But our next mileage time, we now get Cloverdale from 19 miles away. So Indiana is now being inconsistent? What? Here in the Greencastle area, we'll meet with US Highway 40 once again. And we're now meeting with Interstate 70 as well, as it's getting the same control cities that we saw going northbound on 231. And then our next mileage time, we now get Worthington, Indiana from 34 miles away. And once we get closer to Spencer, Indiana 67 joins us, and we now get Vincennes from 67 miles away. How coincidental. And when we join with Indiana 57, we're now getting signed for Washington and Evansville, which are also good choices. But our next mileage time, we get Newbury on the top line and Elnora as our primary. Indiana, why are you being so terrible? Come on, you're usually one of the best DOTs out there, but you're doing very terribly on US 231. What is this garbage? I want to see the places that we're being signed for, not this. We're here in Bloomfield, and we're leaving Indiana 54 and 157, as we're not getting signed for Lagudi. And here we meet with Interstate 69, as it's getting snow control cities, apparently. So this must be during a time when Street View drove by with Interstate 69 having no controls. Strange. And here again, 3-line mileage time with Jasper as our primary from 34 miles away, which is a good choice. And here in Lagudi, we meet with US 50 and 150, and we're now getting signed for Jasper. And from the Jasper area, we're now getting signed for Huntingburg and Gale. To be honest, I also prefer to see maybe like Owensboro on here instead of like Huntingburg and Gale, because Owensboro is out of state and a big city in Kentucky. But our next mileage time, we get Huntingburg on the top line, Interstate 64 as our secondary, and Gale as our primary. Come on, Indiana. Why? Just have Owensboro on here. I want to see Owensboro. Here we are meeting with Interstate 64, and at least it's getting awesome control cities. And finally, our next mileage time, we do get Owensboro from 35 miles away. It should have been signed since Jasper. And here we are crossing over the Ohio River and into the state of Kentucky. And here we meet with US Highway 60 as US 60 and 231 are now going to be continuing west towards Owensboro. And here we meet the northern terminus of Interstate 165 as it's being signed for Bowling Green. While we're going to be splitting off from US 60 here in 3/4 of a mile. Here's that said split exit as we just get south for New Hartford Road. I mean, you could just do New Hartford or New Hartford and Beaver Dam, but not your own treatment, Kentucky. Come on. Here in the Beaver Dam area, we'll meet with US Highway 62. And here's where US 62 splits off from US Highway 231, as US 231 is continuing south towards Bowling Green. And skipping ahead to the Bowling Green area, we'll meet with US Highway 68. And we're not going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Scottsville. And still in the Owensboro area, we'll meet with US Highway 31W as it's being signed for Nashville Street. And we also meet with Interstate 65, which is being signed for Louisville and Nashville. And skipping ahead to the Scottsville area, we'll meet with US 31E. And this is the branch of our parent that we're going to be concurrent with as we head into the state of Tennessee. And here we are entering into the state of Tennessee and also Sumner County, Tennessee. Here's where we split off from US Highway 31E as it's being signed south for Gallatin, while we get Hartsville and Lebanon. And I like that Lebanon on there. And here in Lebanon, we meet with US Highway 70, and we're also a couple miles west of US 70N here. Here we meet with Interstate 40 as well, being signed for Knoxville and Nashville, respectively. And as we saw that other sign from northbound, we're now getting signed south for Murfreesboro, which is a great choice. And here's where we're joining with US 41 and US 70S here, as we just get the Kentucky treatment, which kind of makes sense because we are in the heart of Murfreesboro. And then after splitting off from US 41 and 70S, we meet with Interstate 24 here, as they're getting signed for Chattanooga and Nashville. And here in Shelbyville, we meet with US 41 alternate here, as we're going to continue south towards Fayetteville. And here we meet with US 64, and it's eastbound is being signed for Winchester, while we're going to be concurrent with westbound US 64. And here's where we split off from US 64 to join with US 431, and we're now getting signed for Huntsville, which is an awesome choice. And we're now entering into the state of Alabama. I mean, I'm from Alabama, but I do not like that welcome sign. It's just... And here we meet the exit for US Highway 72 eastbound, as 72 westbound is going to be concurrent with us for a little bit. And here's where US 72 westbound splits off from US 231 and 431, as it's just being signed for University Drive, which makes sense because this is where US 72 splits off from US 231 and 431. I mean, I get it's known as University Drive here in the heart of Huntsville, but I also like to see Athens on here because that is the next major city US 72 will be passing through. Here we meet with Interstate 565 once again, and we just get no control cities once again. And also, it looks like there is room to put a control city for US 231 southbound here, but ALDOT has never done that, and I do not like that. There should be a control city there. And this is where we split off from US Highway 431 for a good while. We will be meeting it once again in Dothan. And here we are crossing over the Tennessee River once again, and it looks like this bridge is not as new as the northbound lanes. Our next mileage time, we now get Winona as our primary from 33 miles away. And on the outskirts of Winona, we meet with US Highway 278. And do you remember how I said that US 231 gets signed for Birmingham twice? Well, this is the second time here. I believe it's because of Interstate 59, so that is awesome. Here we meet with US Highway 11 here, outside of Asheville, Alabama. And our next mileage time, we now get Montgomery from 123 miles away. That is awesome. And here we meet with Interstate 59, as it's being signed for Birmingham and Gadsden. No one likes that Gadsden. And here in Asheville, we meet with US Highway 411, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through town. And when we split off from US Highway 411, we're now getting signed south for Pell City, which is a good choice. And here we meet with Interstate 20 in the Pell City area. And we also meet with US Highway 78 here, so that's pretty cool. Here on the next mileage time, we now get Sylacauga on the top line from 36 miles away, and Montgomery now is our primary from 99. Here outside of Sylacauga, we meet with US Highway 280 once again, as the two highways are now going to be signed for Sylacauga. And here in the Sylacauga area, we split off from US 280 as we're now getting signed for Montgomery for southbound, which is, I like that. In fact, our next mileage time, we get Rockford, Alabama on the top line from 19 miles away, and Montgomery from 64. Here in the Montgomery area, we meet with Alabama 152, which will take you over to Interstate 65 once again, as we're now getting signed south for Troy, which is a good choice. Here we meet with US Highway 80 once again, and we're still getting signed south for Troy. And this is where we join with US 82 and split off from US Highway 80, as we're going to be continuing south towards Troy and Dauphin now. Our next mileage time, we get Union Spring on the top line from 40 miles away, Troy from also 40 miles away, and Ozark as our primary from 75 miles away. I don't know why you need a three-liner for when two of the cities are the same distance. Maybe to differentiate between 82 and 231. But I prefer to see also Dothan on here too, because Dothan is a pretty big city in southern Alabama. I mean, this is just a weird three-liner. And here's where US 82 splits off from us as it's being signed for Union Springs, while we're going to be continuing south towards Troy and Dothan. In our next mileage time, we do get Troy on the top line with Dothan as our primary from 85 miles away. And here in the Troy area, we'll meet with US Highway 29 and Alabama Highway 10, as they'll take you into downtown Troy. And skipping ahead to the Dothan area, we're now going to be joining with US 84 and Alabama Highway 210 here, as we head around the city of Dothan. And this is the southern terminus of US Highway 431, and we're now going to be continuing south towards Panama City. In fact, we get Panama City as our primary from 78 miles away on our next mileage sign, so that is awesome by ALDOT. And then we get another mileage sign with Panama City still as their primary, this time with Mariana from 25 miles away. And we're now entering into the state of Florida, and just like Alabama, there's also a welcome center on US 231. In our next mileage sign, FDOT is actually being pretty consistent here with Panama City from 64 miles away. And here in Continental, we meet with US Highway 90 once again, and we're going to continue south towards Panama City still. And in fact, we get it still on our mileage signs from this time 51 miles away. And here we meet with Interstate 10 once again, as it just gets the same control cities that we saw going northbound. And now we just get a one-liner for Panama City from 44 miles away. And on our way to Panama City, we meet with Florida Highway 20 once again. And this here is in the Panama City area, as we're meeting with US Highway 98, as it's being signed west for beaches. I'm guessing beaches along the Florida Panhandle, while we're getting signed south for the historic downtown of Panama City. Which kind of makes sense because US 331 just ends a few blocks south of 98. And after going through downtown Panama City, we end here at US 98 Business or 8th Street, with sadly no end sign like how Indiana gave us an end sign, which stinks. So with that, we end US Highway 231 and we move on to the places I'll go. So these are all the places that I'd visit if I ever was to stop at the exits on the interstates on US 231 or was on any other part of the highway. If you have any other places that you'd like to suggest that are along US 231, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll love to make sure to check out those places if I'm ever on the highway again. And that ends US Highway 231. Thank you all so much for watching this long episode on the US Highway 231. I hope you got to learn a little bit more about this highway and how it's a lot like US 421, connecting the southeast all the way up to northern Indiana, and how Indiana is actually pretty bad on this highway. So with that, here are my next few highways. If you have any intersection requests for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on next week as we head over to the Metroplex